What is up, gamers? Welcome back! And today we're gonna be watching a video on Gamerland. Why fans get taken for granted. Oof, ain't that the truth sometimes. For those of you watching and are new to the channel, hi, my name is Paws, and today's word for the comment section, if you have nothing else to comment, just comment this word, is asparagus. I don't know why.
David Geiger is the narrative writer who worked on big hits like Baldur's Gate 2, Neverwinter Nights, Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, and was the lead writer on Dragon Age Origins, Dragon Age 2, and Dragon Age Inquisition. Safe to say the man knows his way around an RPG. And he recently revealed in an interview that despite his tenure and success, around the 2010s EA decided to move away from traditional RPGs because they took their audience for granted. And I am putting that lightly.
EA spoke about a hypothetical nerd cave full of fans who would always show up so you don't have to try and appeal to them. Honestly, that is very true to a degree. It is rather unfortunate, but a lot of people do take fans for granted. Like, oh, we already have you hooked, why should we care anymore? Like, you're invested in this. But I feel like that's more the case if you've been with a franchise for like, I don't know, several years. Kind of like Star Wars, right? People, even if they hate Star Wars, they will still go back to it. Even when they're like, I hate everything about this. They're like, well, maybe the next one's better.
Here's the full quote. You didn't have to worry about the nerds. You didn't have to try and appeal to them. You had to worry about the people who weren't in the cave, which was the audience we actually wanted, which was much larger.
Jesus Christ, that is hell of a statement to make. Like, bro. Nice way to make your audience feel shitty.
And the phrase "in the cave" meant where the nerds went. The nerds were in the cave. You made an RPG, and the nerds in the cave would always show up for an RPG because it was an RPG. How bigoted. Not all RPG nerds. Now, this is not unique to EA. This is actually fairly common. I wouldn't say the cave metaphor is wrong. I think the way they went about it is wrong. I actually quite like the sound of it. It's very Tolkien. In a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit.
I mean, honestly, it's not completely wrong. Like, it makes sense because, yes, if you are deep in the rabbit hole, right, and you're invested in a story or you're invested in a franchise and a universe, you're more likely to show up because you're curious what happens to the universe. But there is a limit to that. You're not just gonna show up, especially not in this day and age. Back then, yes, you could argue that a lot of people would show up for an RPG because there weren't that many RPGs. But it's a weird view to say you don't worry about it, because you do worry about it. You're still making an RPG and you still had to have standards, because back then you didn't have day one patches. Back then, you had to make sure that the product runs well on a lot of systems because it was freaking on a DVD. You had to like make sure everything was okay because patching it wasn't easy. Like, I remember Dragon Age Origins, I spent 9 months with a main quest blocker. Like, the game would crash on a cinematic and I could not pass beyond it before they managed to update the driver for my graphics card so that I could actually get past that and have it resolved, because all the patches weren't fixing anything. It took 9 months for me to be able to continue from there. You found the mod that fixed it? Oh my god, I could not find anything. I tried really hard. I was so pissed. Because I was really invested in my characters too. But yeah, like, I understand the analogy and it does make sense. And it's not particularly wrong that once you have your teeth in someone, right? Once you hook something, it's easier to hold. But that doesn't mean that they'll eat any slop. I say that loosely because it is proven time and time again that a lot of people are willing to eat slop. Overwatch, I will never get over that. Despite the fact that, you know,
so let's run with
they
it.
should.
Let's say everyone has a cave, and by cave I mean comfort zone. It's where you keep all the things you like and enjoy. Most people don't go too far from their cave, and when they do leave of their own free will, it's usually to grab more of the things that they already like. The question then is, how do we design and market a game that will pull as many people out of their cave as possible? One common method is based in spatial economics. You put yourself in the middle between all the caves that you're targeting. This is why sometimes you
Okay.
see multiple different gas stations all in the same corner. They've clustered in the middle of as many customers as possible.
That is so true and so weird to see competing gas stations literally next to each other.
This kind of works in theory when talking about art because generally speaking, people who like the same things tend to
RPGs back then is Witcher free. Sir, Witcher 3 is only 10 years old. Try Witcher 1, which is arguably top notch with its collector card.
build their comfort zones around the same areas.
I'm
People who
not
like
old!
RPGs tend
I'm ancient, okay? Oh, God.
to build their caves near the RPG field by the Sword and Shield River and the Dungeons and Dragons Forest. So you make a game for
Oh my god, Dungeons and Dragons. So true.
those people with these features and set up shop right in the middle of all their taste. But you want
Wait, there's a Witcher 1 remake? Huh?
more money. And RPG Field is only a fraction of the entire population of
And it won't have the cards? What's the fucking point then? I'm sorry. If I can't fuck a Dryad and have it as a card collectible, what's the point? Witcher 1 unironically had a very diverse representation. You know, people are complaining about, like, we're not represented. Well, you could fuck anything that moved and anyone that moved and anything. I mean, anything that moved. And then have it as a collectible. Oh, man. That's sad. At least people will get to kind of experience the story, I guess. It will not be the same. I don't want to play it. I don't want to sully my memories of Witcher 1. It was great. It was great.
of the continent Gamerland. So you start making games that appeal to the crowds from far-off regions, and you set up shop closer to them. The logic there is you'll get these new customers, and the lovely cave dwellers of RPG Field are so devoted to you that they will travel further for your game. But I want to add something to that theory, and that's that people will only travel so far, literally and figuratively.
Yeah, exactly. Like what he said. I completely agree with that because, like, there's only so far that someone's willing to go for you. And, like, push enough, like, burn that goodwill. The way I see it is mostly, like, you know, burning goodwill. And that comes from, like, every company and every franchise. There's only so much that people are willing to tolerate before they move on to greener pastures.
Some might make the trek through Action Adventure Valley, maybe even get as far as Action Adventure Shooter Canyon. But they're probably not going to go into live service looter shooter Gulch to play games like Anthem, which was so far removed from the roots that they no longer resonated with the citizens of RPG Fields. And the shooter crowd didn't care for them because in their eyes it wasn't a shooter, it was an RPG that lost its way. And this is probably where someone will say, this video could have been faster if you had just said a game for everyone is a game for no one in reference to Helldivers 2. The people seem to forget that Helldivers 2 was initially supposed to be for a more hardcore crowd. But their design and balance was really rough during the first few months after release, to the point where the CEO of Arrowhead publicly said, I think we've gone too far in some areas. We'll talk to the team about the approach to balance. It feels like every time someone finds something fun, the fun is removed. The reality is, in commercial development, you're making a game for someone, and you don't always get the audience you want. Purists will hate hearing this, but sometimes compromising your vision does make your game more successful.
Yeah, that reminds me so much of Path of Exile because the devs wanted so hard to have a game that is meaningful in combat and slow and more Dark Soul-esque and more decision making, and it turned into blast the entire screen or, well, several screens farther away, and like it became basically how fast you can clear a map to get loot and become the loot pinata, and that went against their vision, against things. So it's kind of interesting, like how developers start off with having something, but it completely changes, or it receives a different audience and becomes something different or that they didn't envision. And the question is, do you embrace it or do you squash it? Because One thing I've noticed developers do is trying to actively squash that rather than embrace what they attracted and embrace what it's become, right? They try to actively change it. And then they made PoE 2 with the idea of having more meaningful and slow combat, and it ended up being a blasting the screen again, yeah. And they're not happy about that, despite everyone enjoying it a lot more. And I say everyone in the terms of like a big chunk of people, because obviously it's not everyone. It's fascinating. I still remember like one thing, for example, that pissed me off from the PoE team, because some of you might know, some of you might not. I have over 20,000 hours in Path of Exile. Hi, I'm a nerd. It's nice to meet you. The moment they lost me as a purchasing power client, like a dedicated person, right, was when they decided that me having the option to remove shadows from the game to improve my performance was not worth their artistic styling and how they wanted the game portrayed for other people to see to get into the game. They literally said that they think the game doesn't look good if you remove the shadows, and they don't want that to be the graphic that people see when they come onto Twitch or watch YouTube videos. They don't want their product to be seen without shadows. So what they did was they removed the option to remove shadows, which arguably made the performance in the game a lot worse. So they compromised, or rather they juggled the idea and concept. And that's it. This isn't an interview, by the way. It's an interview made by Ziggy D. You can find it. It goes way back. And for me personally, they compromised. They went, nah, fuck you guys and your performance. We want the visuals, right? And they gambled their core audience still sticking with the game, which we did. They gambled that for their own visual gain, right? So it's a very good concept that this video as well brings. It's like, what do you do when you end up like trying to chase a different audience and you neglect your current audience? How far can you push it? PoE honestly is a very good study case for that in my eyes, because it's a game where they have a really dedicated, almost rabid fan base, like very, very dedicated, where they could throw them, I don't know, scraps for dinner and they'll be happy. It's very weird just how far they can push and like kind of tug you along for the ride, and the amount of like years it takes to exhaust that quote unquote goodwill.
Most games make mainstream compromises, they just don't tell you about them. But I believe every game has a point where it can no longer change something without losing something. That's where a lot of modern games go wrong. Because there isn't a gamer that likes every kind of game. You can't even lump in all RPG gamers in the same way that you can't lump in sports gamers and shooter gamers and fighting game gamers. What is a gamer if not a miserable pile of games I'll get to one day? That's the other mistake here. This kind of thinking tends to come from investors, executives, and developers who think it is possible to expand and claim all of Gamerland. Not only do they think it's possible, it's a missed opportunity if they don't. And part of that is because of how the industry talks about itself. All the success is lumped in with one another instead of contextualized. The industry is massive and growing, but not equally in all sectors and genres. And to give a little feedback, here's what I think you're better off doing if you want to grow. You don't have to grow, but if you just can't help yourself. Instead of taking your traditional audience for granted, service them good and service them well. Make a game that makes your core audience throw a party so big the fireworks can be seen from any hilltop in Gamerland. That in turn gets everyone else's attention. I don't think it's a universal experience, but I'm willing to wager
Hey, blueprints! Look at that!
Every gamer has purchased at least one video game that somebody else was excited about. And to prove this, leave yours in the comments. I've done it multiple times. My most recent are Blueprints and Expedition 33. And I can go back all the way to 2013 when my...
Like, honestly, same. Both of them were purchased just because I heard people say good things about them.
My Call of Duty friends and I got into Diablo because our coworker had a tattoo and was so infectiously happy to talk about the lore. There ought to be something going on here. He gave an arm for this game. That's what happens when you care about your core. The core cares about your game. If you don't care about your core, they don't care about your game, then I'm not leaving my cave.
Yeah, like honestly, this is a very good video. You are right to label it as food for thought because it is a video that sparks discussion. It sparks a lot of discussion in a lot of different fields in a lot of different ways. For me, I would say I completely agree with the stance of like making a game for the people that are there and show up, making it so good that other people are going to just flock because of that. Like it's absolutely crazy to me that there are people that just take you for granted to the point where you have to like question whether they care at all about the audience. As I said, for me, PoE like with that change lost me a tiny bit, and then they lost me with a lot of like just constantly nerfing all the things that were fun and trying to push their own archetypes onto me. Like that's how they slowly over time eroded my goodwill. I don't really have any other game. Like I guess WoW at one point. I don't know. I feel like the rating system just it's changed. Like it changed a lot. Like it used to be 40 man, which was chaotic but also epic, and then it became like 25. And then they added option for 10 and it's just like, huh. And it just felt like it was taking away from communities more and more. Cataclysm was actually when I quit. It was just like I don't connect with this anymore. Like it's not for me. I can't think of any other game that I was really invested in. I mean, Wildstar, may it rest in peace. But that's because they pulled the plug on it. I fucking love that game. Caring about your audience is one thing, insulting people who may not be a part of it is different. Yes, of course, of course. Fans do get taken for granted though. Like, if you think about your franchises, like your beloved franchises, in anything, it doesn't even have to be in gaming, right? Think of books that you've been waiting for ages and they're not getting finished. All the while, you're getting remakes and TV shows and movies on the unfinished series that's getting a different ending. Cough, cough, Game of Thrones. Like there are so many things where fans get taken for granted and it's sad because like they're the ones who built you up. Even content creation, right? Like there's a lesson to be had there too. When you kind of like just take the people for granted, like they're gonna show up. Like I don't know. It's sad. It's sad when that happens. Anyway, YouTube. YouTube in the comment section if you made it this far. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think like there are a lot of franchises that take you for granted? Do you think like it's not a problem? How far are you willing to like stray from like your cave, so to speak? Thank you for hanging out with us. Thank you for watching. And until next time.